Howdy y'all. Today we're going to look at a unit comparison. We're going to look at the Razordons versus Salamanders. Which one is better, why, and how can we utilize them to our advantage? So, if you've been playing Seraphon very long, you probably have some Razordons, and you know the issues we had with them in the past in that they were extremely expensive models. Now, we're going to run into the same issue with the Salamanders as we do the Razordons. You're going to need a couple of them, and they're not exactly cheap to acquire. The Razordons, wait, we got our first slide here. Our Razordons, for some reason, went up $5 recently. Now, everything's out of stock because of the quarantine, but when everything's back in stock, you should be able to acquire these from the GW website. They're both pretty expensive at $30 or $35 each. And you're going to need minimum of 3 of them to fill out a unit, because you're going to want 3 of these guys plus the required handlers that go into the unit to fill it out. Razordons have been pretty easy to kitbash. In fact, I have a video, I'll link it below, that shows a pretty easy kitbash with Saurus cold ones from the Night kit. And you can use those with some green stuff and toothpicks, or green stuff and the little ends of spears to make the different spikes on the Razordons. Salamanders are a little bit harder, but you definitely need to find out some kind of kit bashing solution, because $30 for one of those hideous models is not acceptable. Look at that thing. The thing is bad. The Razordons are at least acceptable looking. They look pretty good. They're a little derpy. Like, it kind of looks like they're smiling and sticking their tongue out at you. I mean, what is that? These are models from many years ago. They're still in fine cast. The Salamander may be metal. I don't know. If it may be fine cast now, but it's terrible looking. Like, when you see this thing in real life, it looks like it's got like a gimp leg or something, that it's hurt its leg and it can't walk correctly. These things are not nice looking models. So I would definitely recommend a kit bash. I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing a Saurus Knight with some of the fins from the Troglodon kit. May have to cut some down. Maybe I can make 2 out of them. We'll see. See if we can get up a video of kit bashing some Salamanders. But let's go on to the comparison here. Expensive models. Try to kit bash something and to fill out your models, to fill out your unit, and let's see how they do on the table. So let's look at the Razordons first. We do have a couple updates from previously. They got longer range, and they have a guaranteed shoot in the charge phase. So we'll look at that. But first, the profile here. We have 18-inch range on an 8-inch move. So we have a good threat range of 26 inches, which means you should be able to hit a target turn 1 with these Razordons, no matter what deployment you're using, as long as the other person's not backing up too far. You'll clear that 24-inch line. Their attacks, they have 2d6 attacks, so it is random, but you'll average, about 7 per model. Well, unless you really need it, then you'll roll 2 1s or something, Their hits are 3s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. You do get rend if you're within 6 inches of the enemy, and so I'm not going to count that into their profile while we're doing the math hammer on this, because most of the time you're not going to get that until later in the game or in the charge phase, which I will factor into that shooting. In melee, they do have 3 attacks each, 3s and 3s, minus 2 rend, 2 damage. So this is actually a pretty good profile. They're not bad in melee now. Before they were trash in melee, but they were a little bit better in shooting. Now they might be better in melee. That 3s and 3s, 3 attacks, minus 2 rend. I mean, we get some nasty rend on this, so it's pretty cool. They do have the instinctive defense, which if in the charge phase, within 3 and you weren't within 3 of somebody before, you can shoot. And so this is kind of nice, because this also happens in your charge phase. So you can charge these guys in and then get a shot off with them. They don't get as many shots. You only get D6 shots instead of 2D6, but it's still not bad. So I'm going to factor that into their damage output, both their shots that they get in the shooting phase, their shots they get in the charge phase, and then their melee ability also. So pretty good War Scroll. They have good long range here. They up their range, and we get a guaranteed shoot, even if it's only half of their normal shots in the charge phase. So I do like the War Scroll. I think I did get a little bit better. Let's look at what kind of damage they do. Just the shooting phase. So we're just talking 3 Razordons in a unit, and they're shooting 2d6 each. They're going to average 3.5 damage against the 4-up save. It's not very good. It's not very good. Razordons could really do some work back in the last Battle Tome when you could take 4 of them in a unit and you could teleport 2 of them at 2 units at a time to put, shots on target. But it wasn't really all that good. You're just fishing for those high number of attacks. This is kind of the same thing. Your average damage dealt isn't going to be that high. But I think when you factor in the shoot in the charge phase, and the melee, they all of a sudden become a little bit better. So now, up against the 4-up save, if you're shooting in the charge phase, and you're doing melee, you're doing 12.5 damage. That's not bad. It is 240 points. So for 240 points, I think I'd like to see a little bit more damage out of that. But we can squeeze a little bit more damage out of these Razordons. So in just shooting phase, 3.5. Shooting, charge phase, and melee, we got 12.5. Let's see what kind of buffs we're going to do on this buff chart here. I'm going to put a +1 to hit from a Skink Priest, so that's a command point. And we're going to put mortals on 6s to wound from the Star Priest. I'm also going to put them in Thunderquake and give them +1 melee attacks. I'm doing that because you're probably going to see a lot of Razordons and Salamanders in Thunderquake. Somebody's running Thunderquake, they have to have one of these or Croxagore. So you're going to see a lot of these in Thunderquake. They're quite viable outside Thunderquake, like in Fangs of Sotek or any of the Starborn stuff where you can teleport. If you're running Draco's Tail and you can put down a whole bunch of stuff in range, these all of a sudden might be viable in those lists as well. I'm gonna do the math in Thunderquake because I think you can get the most damage out of this. So with those buffs, we're using 1 command point, and then we're pointing the staff from the Star Priest onto him. And now all of a sudden our 4-up damage is 24. So all of a sudden we're getting a lot more damage. That +1 to hit from the Skink Priest is pretty big, but also the mortals on wound from the Star Priest is quite valuable for these guys because they have a lot of attacks but not high quality. They have quantity, not quality. And so, we're going from 12.5 up to 24. So we're almost doubling our damage with just 1 command point and 1 buff ability from the Star Priest. So we're all of a sudden at quite a bit of damage. For 240 points, you're getting 24 damage. That I like. They're looking good in that list. And in Thunderquake, if you don't want to do the extra melee attacks, which I think is fine here, you can add the run and charge and shoot. So these guys are getting even quicker. They're going to be going 8 plus your run. And if you add the Constellation for +1 to run and charge, you're going to get an extra range there. So they should be able to shoot just about anything you want to on the table. In Thunderquake, you can also get access to that run and shoot from the Skink Priest, which you're going to be taking with these guys to help buff them. And so if you don't need to do that, you can flip the Thunderquake over to the melee attacks. So not bad, 24 damage for the Razordons. I think they're still a viable unit. Let's look at the Salamanders now. So Salamanders, they have the same base move, the same base save, wound count, bravery. The only thing that's different is their attacks here. So let's look at these attacks. So Stream of Fire is 12-inch range. So they do have a little bit shorter range by 6 inches. They have 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 Ren, D3 damage. Whew. So these guys have a better hit profile, or to wound profile, much better rend, but they'll on average have fewer attacks in the shooting phase. Where this model really shines is in its ability. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a Stream of Fire or Burning Jaws is 6, that attack inflicts D3 mortal wounds on the target unit, and the attack sequence ends. So we're looking at those mortals. On 6s to hit, we're doing mortals. This right here is huge. That's huge. So this right here is quality attacks, not quantity. And so these guys they've got 4 attacks each. So, I mean, you're still getting quite a few attacks out of 3 of them. You're having 12 attacks, fishing for those 6s for D3 mortals. But even if you don't get those, you've got -2 rend. So you're still doing a ton of damage here with these guys. But their Burning Jaws also gets that same ability. It also hits those mortals on the hit. And you've got 3 of those each. Same profile, 3s and 3s, -2 rend, D3 damage. So they're slightly worse in melee, but not by much. They're still going to do a lot of damage in melee. And we have ways to buff that, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's look at just their pure damage here. So just the shooting phase, they're doing 10.6 damage just in the shooting phase. So that's not bad. This is a good unit to teleport if you're in Fangs, and they'll be in range to shoot, and they've got a 12-inch shot, and so they can burn some stuff down. If you pick a 4-up save unit, you're gonna put 10 damage on them. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good little alpha strike you got from teleport. If you're doing shooting and melee, they're doing 18 damage against a 4-up save. That's pretty awesome for these little bitty weird derpy looking lizard guys. Those mortals is really, I think, what pushes it through, but they have that high rend and good attack profile at 3s and 3s. So these guys are all around pretty nice. Let's see what kind of buffs we can add on to them and see what we can get them up to. So for my buffs here, we're going to do shooting and melee, and we're going to add those together. We're going to add +1 from the Skink Priest, same as the Razordons. We're going to mortal wounds on 6s for the Star Priest. Same as Razordons on that one. And then we're doing +1 melee attacks from Thunderquake, same as we did for Razordons, but we also get a +1 jaw attacks from Coalesced, because if you look at their card, they do have a Jaws attack, which Coalesced gets +1. And when you're adding +1 to a -2 rend D3 damage that has a chance for mortals, I'll take that. That'll look good. And we'll see these Salamanders run a lot in Thunderquake, so that's why I'm including it here. And now, against our 4-up save, we're doing 32 damage. Now that I like. That sounds good. 32 damage from these guys with very minimal effort. We're adding the 1 command point from the Skink Priest, and we're doing some mortals from the Star Priest, which really, those don't help the Salamanders as much as they do the Razordons, because you don't have as many shots, and the 6s that you're hitting on the Salamanders stop the sequence. And so you'll lose those. You'll get D3 mortals out of those, but you'll lose a chance for those 6s on wounds to do mortals. So really the Star Priest isn't as required for this. I think it added maybe 2 damage, 2 or 3 damage to the stats hammer on this thing. So not critical, but I kind of wanted to do the same type of comparison here. So let's look and see how do they measure up. Once we see them lined up against each other, I think we can see that Salamanders definitely outclass Razordons. In pure shooting, if you're just taking them to shoot, you've got a 300% difference between Razordons and Salamanders. Razordons are doing 3.5, Salamanders are doing 10. So we're Salamanders are definitely better if you're just looking to shoot them, maybe from behind a screen, and Salamanders are the way to go there. If you're going to shoot, charge, and melee, Salamanders are still better. You've got 150% better with the Salamanders, 12 versus 18 there. And fully buffed up, the Razordons are starting to catch up. You know, you're reducing that difference a little bit, but it's still a clear win for the Salamanders. Salamanders are at 32 and Razordons are at 24. So I think it's without a doubt, Salamanders are better than Razordons. We could say that definitively in this book. Before, it was Razordons really, because Salamanders were a little bit too hard to use, because you had to really work their buffs and keep handlers with them. Now the handlers are in the unit and they don't really do anything anyway. So Salamanders are definitely better than Razordons. Is there a place for Razordons? I think so. They are faster. You can alpha strike them easy turn 1, even if you don't have any teleports. If you do have teleports, Salamanders are definitely the way to go. They can hit those priority targets and really burn them down hard with that -2 rend. So if you're teleporting, Salamanders are 100% way to go. If you're looking for a fast unit that kind of makes people afraid to charge them, Razordons might have a place there. If you're already taking the stuff that needs to buff them up, the Skink Star Priest and the Skink Priest, you're looking for something to buff maybe turn 2, these guys could be your target. So Razordons are a little bit faster, but overall Salamanders are definitely better. I did include one more slide here to talk about maybe some kit bashing ideas. We do have these guys that were announced a few weeks ago, and they're going to be a Necromunda model. So it's going to be part of one of the Necromunda gangs or something. And they're not released yet, and it looks like they're pretty small. I think they're on 25s, but you might be able to, put 2 of them on a base or something. But that'd keep you GW compliant if you do any GW tournaments. But all right, so definitive answer: Salamanders are better than Razordons. Let me know if you have any ideas on how to kit bash a Salamander, because I need to convert my 16 Razordons into Salamanders somehow. So let me know if you have some ideas on how to kit bash some Salamanders, or are you buying these guys and somehow making them look sweet? All right, have a good one, guys.